Today on the Servant Leadership Podcast, we're thrilled to welcome PJ Huizenga. PJ's story is deeply rooted in a multi-generational legacy of entrepreneurial grit and vision. His great-grandfather began a waste collection business that grew into waste management, now the largest waste disposal company in the world. His family's legacy also includes early investments in companies like Blockbuster Video and many other well-known brands. Building on this remarkable heritage, PJ leads their family office with a focus on stewarding resources wisely, investing in cutting-edge industries like tech and biotech, and mentoring future leaders. In this episode, PJ shares how his family's values have shaped his approach to leadership, why servant leadership is integral to his work, and how to help foster growth in mission-driven leaders. Join us for this compelling conversation with PJ as we explore life in a family office and how to leave a lasting legacy while serving others with purpose.
Well, PJ, thank you for being on the podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
I'm super excited because I only started getting to know you a few months ago.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to get to know you better and have other people start hearing some of your story too.
Yeah.
Tell us kind of a little bit of your career journey, how you got to where you are, and some of the background behind everything you have going on here.
I went to Hope College. I played soccer, accounting major there. I went to Arthur Andersen. I had interned at Arthur Andersen. I decided I never wanted to do another day of audit in my life. On my exit interview, they gave me a full-time offer, $37,500, huge amount of money. And I said, I love the firm and I love the culture, but I don't want to do another day of audit in my life. So they asked what kind of work would I like to do. And I said, I really want to understand how to value businesses and work with companies and really dive into the cash flows. And they said, we have a fastest growing group at our firm is called the Transaction Advisory Services Group. We'd love to have you join it. And I did. And so I worked for Arthur Andersen for about 4 years. And I knew I didn't want to be a partner there. Our family had a family office here that invested in private companies. And I thought I could take my skill set here. And so I started here in late 2001.
Wow. So you have the term family office.
Yeah.
To some of the listeners, they have no idea what that is. So explain what a family office is.
Family offices have become very common these days. If you have a liquidity event and you wonder what you're going to do with your money, in the past, you just outsource your capital. You'd give it to a bank and they'd manage it. But people started asking questions like, well, how much are you investing side by side in what you're telling me to invest in, or what are the fees you're charging? And they said, maybe I hire my own team to do everything on my own. And not to say it's exclusive to do it on your own, but that's the core of what we do. So we have 18 people that work here. We invest in every asset class. We're very opportunistic. And so every day could be something new that you're taking a look at. But for the most part, we look at tech and biotech, hedge funds, venture funds.
How did you guys get in the position where you could even start a family office, where you had that liquidity event? What was that?
We're long, multi-generational garbage men. And so my great-grandfather came here in 1893 for the World's Fair. Didn't want to work for anyone, didn't want to work on Sunday, started going door to door, asking people, can I pick up your garbage? And it was dependable. You got paid every week. And if they didn't pay you, you left the garbage on their front lawn. And so it was a generational business. My father and my uncles were at the company and decided to take it to the next level. Can you do it in multiple states? Can you start to grow? They were almost acquired by the 800-pound gorilla, Browning Ferris, which showed them the playbook on the roll-up strategy, and they decided we could beat them at that game. So I'm very blessed. My family started and created Waste Management, the largest garbage company in the world, and then early investor in Blockbuster Video.
Wow. So that puts you in a position of a little bit of pressure coming in and trying to manage what your family's already created before you, and you're coming in and now trying to figure out what should we do. I'm sure it's not easy working with family. What did that look like, this process of you coming on board the family office and actually starting to take control of doing things?
Yeah, it's a platform, right? So you could look at it as pressure, or you could look at it as you've been given a platform to do something. And you have to be a steward of it, and you have to guide it. When I came here, I joined about a year after my brother-in-law, and it was great as having him as a mentor, having my father as a mentor, and having a buffer in between my father and I. At first, as you're learning and as you start to work together, having a full investment team, the buck stops with the family who's making the decision, but we have wise people around us helping navigate different landscapes that we see, different opportunities that we see.
So people are probably always pitching you things or throwing deals across your desk. What does that look like? What's the process of we've never heard of this opportunity to now there's an opportunity to now we decide we want to get into it?
Yeah, so our bar is very high. We may do 1 to 3 direct investments a year. We may do a handful of new hedge funds a year, maybe a new venture fund, maybe not. And it's pattern recognition. So having done it for almost, well over 20 years, you start to see things that landmines you've stepped on in the past, or if we didn't do it, we saw somebody else do it. And so high quality businesses, we have seen in high quality people, you want to do business. My father loved quoting the old Richard Daley, who said, we don't want to do business with nobody didn't send. It's kind of a screen. Our first question is, who's bringing us the opportunity? Why are we so fortunate to be seeing the opportunity? Because if it was really good, chances are they'd bring it to somebody who they were closer to. And then who are the people behind it? Who's the CEO? Because we've seen an average CEO destroy a great business. And we've seen an amazing CEO salvage a decent business and really make something out of it. And so from our standpoint, it's is it a high quality business with high quality leadership and high quality capital going into it? And so that right there probably eliminates 80% of what we see. And then the rest of it, you have to do work on it. And is it a fad? Is it does it really generate cash flow, or is it like a mirage? And so we've got to wrap our mind around that. And that's what we spend our time doing.
So you talk about the importance of leadership, and we talk a lot about servant leadership. How do you see servant leadership playing out among people you're talking to about opportunities with?
Yeah.
And how important is it?
Yeah, it is everything. The best leaders we've seen lead with example. It's like I heard this on your family. Values are caught, they're not taught. You can't tell your kids something and do something else. The CEOs that we've seen, or the hedge fund managers that we've seen, or the venture fund managers that we've seen that are most successful have an internal ego. They serve their employees. They're collaborative. They work well, and they understand when the data changes, change your mind. And you're not headstrong into thinking my idea is the best, because that burns out your team.
Yeah. As you're thinking through, does this leader have what it takes to lead well? So much falls on that leader.
Yeah.
How much does their operating team and the rest of their team matter? Or does it really focus on the main person?
It does, but it all starts with the leader, because it's they who will pick their team. And so we really try to get to know the senior person at the firm, what makes them tick, what is their key motivator. If it's money, chances are we don't want to invest. If they have a passion for what they're doing, and if they see an opportunity in the market to really make a difference, and maybe they make money, maybe they don't, but it's a way to keep score, those are the type of people we want to bet on.
So as you're looking at these businesses, looking at their teams, how involved, I would imagine once you put money in, you want to be heavily involved. Are you more, family offices in general, do you find, are they more hands-on, hands-off? What's the approach, or does it change?
You will never find two family offices that are the same.
Okay.
We were an operating business for a long time. If you're going to put all of your time into one company, you should align that with your asset allocation. So if you're putting all your time into a business, have your money in the business. From our standpoint, we exited that operating business. We have a broader portfolio now with multiple investments. And so we don't want to pour all of our time into one of the companies. And so our model is we really partner with industry experts. We're great generalists. We've seen everything at least once or twice. But we want industry experts to partner with who've lived through everything multiple times and who are going to sweat it. I don't want to have to worry about finding a new CEO. And we've had to do that in the past. But that's not our ideal role. We want to be strategic capital. We want to help people grow. But we don't want to have to tell you how to do your business.
I know a lot of these deals that get thrown into your hands, there's lots of people going in on the deals. You're not the only office in them. How does that complicate things working with other family offices, working with other investors? Is that good? Is that bad?
We don't really interact a lot with other people, whether it's at a hedge fund or on the cap table. Okay. But you want to make sure that they have good partners who are going to be there in a crisis. So we had money with a hedge fund that focused on Russia, and in 2009, Russian market sold off significantly. Their deepest investor was a endowment, one of the largest endowments in the world, and we thought that was going to be a great partner. Well, that endowment pulled the cord and said they're shutting down the fund. That's not something we would have expected. It was at that time you want to lean in and buy really cheap assets. And so figuring out who your partners are is important. We've learned from that. But oftentimes we can't control it. It's just part of our diligence process.
You might not be able to name company names, but what are the types of industries? What are the types of things the people you invest in do?
We invest in all kinds of tech and biotech companies, predominantly tech companies. And so, we just invested in a company called Crusoe. It's the intersection of AI and energy. Where it was a former Bitcoin miner who realized you can harness stranded energy to power. It was Bitcoin mining, but now it's AI and data centers. There's a real need there with Microsoft and AWS and the big five all spending about $200 billion in CapEx to build out their AI war chest. There's a huge opportunity there. I don't believe AI is a fad. So that's an industry where with that company, it sits right at the intersection of providing clean power, cheaper version of power, and you're playing the picks and shovels of AI with a great CEO we've known for a long time and some great partners.
How do you enter a deal like that where just as you're talking about it, I'm like, there's probably so much that goes into that you, before those conversations, weren't an expert on. Yeah. And I don't know if you feel like an expert now or you feel mid-level now or where you feel on that level, but how do you educate yourself on something when somebody's excited about the vision, they're pitching the world to you, and the opportunity, and you're like, I don't know about this industry.
Yeah. Just at a high level, not company specific, but you first ask yourself, what's the 50,000 foot view? And do we believe the industry, if we invested and we had to be invested for 15 years, would it be bigger or smaller in 15 years? And then we go out to our industry partners, so our relationship of hedge funds or venture funds, and we talk to them about the sector. What do you know about the sector? What can you tell us about the sector, the competitive landscape? Because that really drives. We had a manager, we were looking at investing in a cloud company back in 2012. And we reached out to one of our venture funds and he's like, listen, he goes, look at how much cash flow actually falls to the bottom line, because I bet they're investing every single dollar into growth. And the trick is going to be, will they ever generate cash? Because the faster they grow, the more CapEx they're going to have. And at some point, the big boys are going to give it away to keep their data stuck on the ecosystem. Mm-hmm. They were spot on. So that quick phone call saved us a lot of work. But we'll get access to the data room typically. We'll go through all the company's information. We'll have management calls to really try to wrap our mind around it. But we only get that far with probably 5 and maybe 10 investments a year, and then we may one of those may cross our finish line.
Yeah, I mean, as you're thinking through this, and as people are listening to this, the size of deal I know differs a lot. Some of these companies, when they come to you, what size do you think on average they are?
It is across the board. Okay. I mean, we have seeded companies at a $50 million valuation, and then we've invested in late stage growth companies that have been valued, 30 to 50 billion. Our biggest question is, what's the upside? What's the downside? And if this is successful, how does it play out? If it's not successful, is there any salvage value? We size it accordingly based on that upside downside ratio. But if you're investing in a high quality business with great partners and a great CEO, you just got to be patient, because one of the things we've learned is things always take a little longer than you'd expect. People will tell you, we're going to take it public in 3 to 4 years. It's probably going to be 6 to 7 years. And then you probably don't want to sell it right away because short sellers are hitting it or early investors are exiting. So there's a digestion period where you probably have to wait a couple years after that. So you just have to be very patient.
How do you help continue to build into leaders as they go through that experience? Maybe they think they're going public in 3 to 4 years, and really it's going to look like 7 to 8 years. How do you help keep the passion alive and keep them pushing for the end goal?
Yeah, no, most of our entrepreneurs they understand the marketplace, and everyone's got a hockey stick projection up and to the right. But they know the reality, and if they can execute on their plan, it can happen sooner than later. But that's always the magic plan, right? And the plan that they're mentally banking on is it's going to be a grind, but we see an opportunity between here and there. We don't try to tell people our thoughts in terms of like what they can achieve, because we're hopeful that they're going to exceed our expectations. And in many cases, that's been right. In many cases, it's been wrong. But that's one of the things we've learned, which is like, we know so much and you can't extrapolate that on others.
Yeah. One of the things that I think people might presume about family offices is that they've had that big liquidity event, and then the goal is to make the money last as long as possible. And at some point it fizzles away and goes into nothing. Yeah. My perception of a family office is almost quite the opposite. You've had the liquidity event, and it's how much can we grow this over time, and to think through continual growth. Which is right, or is there some in between?
It really is. The family office that does the first falls into that short sleeve to short sleeve in 3 generations, because you have taxes and you have headcount. So each generation, if they have multiple kids, you're in theory dividing that asset base by more heads. And taxes are real. So you have to plan accordingly with your taxes. And you cannot stop being an entrepreneur. You can't stop taking risk. And you don't want to take undue risk, because the law of losses is real. A zero is really hard to come back from if it's sized incorrectly. And so from our standpoint, we have been, we build our portfolio with a kind of sleep well at night bucket, but we also take risk on the other side, because that's really where the growth is going to come from. And if you make, if you take a endowment-esque return or a RIA-esque return of 6.5%, 7%, with inflation and with taxes, you're not going to be growing the asset base.
Right.
So you have to be achieving higher rates of return than that. And some people don't need to, and some people don't care. Put it all into treasuries, and that'll give you a lot of burn rate for a long period of time. But we like to stay active because every day you come across incredible people with brilliant ideas that are out there to change the world, and we get to sit in the front row and see where we want to participate.
At some level, the company is doing well, or the family office is doing well, and you start thinking personally, and maybe others in your family and others at the office, about philanthropy and what that looks like. How do you think people should be thinking about philanthropy that have these liquidity events and family offices in general?
Yeah, even before you have a liquidity event, our upbringing, kind of Dutch Calvinistic upbringing, is you have to be very charitable. Even if you don't have a lot, you have some, you should be giving. And so that starts out with our mindset very early in life, and we've taught our kids that, and I was trained that way. And so giving is a part of living. And the hard part becomes there's so many great organizations that you want to help. That's where it's like, okay, I'm stretching because I want to help all of them. And we go back and forth. Let's consolidate. Let's give more significant dollars to fewer number of organizations. But then you look around and you're like, well, who am I going to cut out? And so over time, your giving partners grow.
How do you think that people who want to be better servant leaders in general, who are listening to this, should think about their own philanthropy?
If you're not giving of yourself sacrificially, of your time or of your treasure, it's going to be very hard for you to find satisfaction in life. If you are living a life centered on yourself and centered on your own enjoyment, you're never going to feel a sense of satisfaction.
Cool.
There's a very famous song written by Keith Richards when he was having a nightmare because he could not get any satisfaction.
Wow.
He actually told me that story. It was pretty neat.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. That's super cool. Well, as people think through how they can grow as better servant leaders, what do you think are some practical things that you have done in your life to become a better servant leader? And I preface this because one of the people who I respect most in the world is the one that introduced me to you.
Yeah. Tom Cole.
Tom Cole. And I think he was an amazing servant leader.
Yeah.
And he spoke so highly of you, more than anyone else I've heard him talk about. So I would love to hear, like, what are the practical steps that help people become better servant leaders?
Well, for me, it's acknowledging I'm not the perfect servant leader I want to be. And every year I try to get better. We do 360 feedback. I just led a group of 15 guys down to Honduras on a mission trip. Wow. And right afterward, did a Google drop. I want feedback. Here's 15 questions. Take some time. How can we do it better? How can we make it more impactful? Got some great feedback. Okay, we're going to implement that next time. I don't know all the answers, but I know I can improve. And I'm very candid about that with people. I'm going to try my best, but I need feedback. So here at our firm, we do 360 feedback where we get anonymous feedback from everybody. I lead a group called Men's Fraternity. We do feedback at the end of the year. How can we make it better? It's because of that feedback we've gotten such great traction with it. And so I look at my life as just trying to compilate, just build up other people's great ideas. And if I can mirror many of them, I will I'll look back on my life and be like, wow, I achieved what I want to achieve, which is I'm far better off than where I was in the past in terms of who I am physically, mentally, spiritually, or emotionally.
One of the things just from observing that I've seen you do is really invest in other leaders, whether or not it's here at the family office, whether or not it's a men's fraternity, you seem to have a high value on making other leaders better. Why do you think that's so important?
It's critical for people, especially, I believe, men don't know what their calling is in life right now. They're feeling confused. And I think when you have men step out of society and check out, there's a leadership dearth. And I have 3 daughters and I have a very awesome wife, nothing disparaging against women. And I've got an amazing mother. But we need men to lead. We need men to lead their families. We need men to lead in their homes. And we need men to show up with school boards. And we need men to show up in churches and to lead their churches. Because when you have men check out, society gets chaotic. And so if I can help make our community better and stronger, if I can help you make your family stronger, by doing that, it makes me stronger with my family, because everything I'm like, when we bring in speakers to talk, I'm sitting in the front row taking notes. And it's like, why aren't I doing that? Why aren't I doing that? I can do that better. We had a speaker earlier in the year, remind us, how often are you dating your wife? I'm like, that's right. I need to be taking my wife on regular dates so that, when your last child leaves the house, you're engaged. And so if we can have a community of people who are intentional about being a leader and being a servant leader and getting feedback and trying to make the environment that they have influence in better, society would just continue to take off.
Yeah. I think one of the things that people underestimate is their sphere of influence. I think people often are looking to do
You're totally right.
The biggest thing is, but not willing to do what's right in their inner circle. I was doing an interview with somebody who was talking about how do you make the largest difference for the nation? And they said, start with your own family.
Yeah.
Then start with your neighborhood and keep going. How do you view all of that?
No, you're spot on. My wife, is like one of these bell ringing moments where she said, you'll never miss a business meeting, but how many times have you missed or been late for a family dinner? And I'm like, you're right. She goes, put it in your calendar. 3 days a week, put it in your calendar, treat it like, so I'm like, you're right. I'll do that. So made a point to make it home for dinner 3 days a week. It makes a difference. Your kids notice that. And I'm modeling for them what I expect of them. I never know where the wisdom is going to hit me from, but if I stay alert to it, I can learn from it. It's like the law of compounding. If you can compound at 5% a year, I think it's about in 50 years, you'll be 11 and a half times better. But if you can compound at 8% a year and improve what you do at 8% a year, it's like 47 times better in 50 years. So it's like, if I can just be in that range and just continue to take best ideas from you, best ideas from Tom Cole. My brother-in-law has given me a lot of wisdom. My father was my mentor and gave me a ton of wisdom. My mom's given me a great wisdom. I've got a wife who speaks truth into me on a regular basis. Okay, even if you disagree, there's got to be something there. They love you. They're giving you feedback for a reason. Think about it and embrace it.
You've had the opportunity to work with your brother-in-law. You've had the opportunity to work with your dad.
Yeah.
What's it like working with family so closely? Just the good and the bad, or is it always just perfect?
No, you're equally yoked. So you have the same goal. And so when you start with that premise, and you want to go to the same destination, you're fully aligned. And that's amazing. Now, like any marriage or relationship, it's really a marriage. You step on each other's toes, and you have to be able to work through that and to say, hey, I was hurt when, or, I did this and I wasn't the best when I handled it this way. And you've just got to be open and frank that I want a better relationship, whether that's with my wife, whether that's what was with my father when he was still alive, whether that's with my brother-in-law or any of our employees. I may step on your toes, but please let me know when I do so I can learn from it. Because I don't want to upset you, and we've got a great thing going. And if we just work a little better all the time, just think where we'll be in a decade or 20 years from now.
Yeah. You talk about that compounding growth, and a lot of it comes from feedback from others. Are there other things that you look to do each year that really help compound your growth?
Yeah. So I break it out into those categories I mentioned earlier: physically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally, and socially. So physically, I try to work out 3 days a week. I had a friend challenge me. I was putting on a lot of weight, and I was consulting, and I was going to business school, and I just had my first kid, and he's like, listen, like, you're not going to the gym. And I'm like, I don't have time. He goes, everyone's got 24 hours. How are you going to spend it? What do you prioritize? And if you don't take care of yourself, you're not going to be effective long term. I had somebody else tell me about Peter Attia's book, Outlive. Reverse engineer, where do you want to be when you're 90? Like, do you want to be an active grandpa or do you want to be stuck in a wheelchair? And so reverse engineer, how do you get to that point? So that would be physically. Mentally, I can learn a lot from people who've lived before me. And so who am I going to read about? So I've read many of the founders of this nation or any of the great world leaders going back thousands of years. I read my Bible because I view that as the owner's manual. There's a lot of wisdom in that. So I'll try to read that 20, 25 minutes, 3 days a week. So that would be the mental component and tapping into the spiritual, physically, mentally, spiritually. I'm in a small group with my wife. So we've got a couples group, about 5 couples that get together to discuss whether it's our marriage or our faith, go through different books. That's grounding me. It's expanding my mind spiritually. When we get into spiritual topics, I take my family to church. It's a discipline. Yes, you can watch church on your phone. You don't even have to go. It's a physical discipline. Reading is a discipline. Reading your Bible is a discipline. Working out, all this stuff happens before my kids are up. Because with 4 kids, if I want to get anything done, it has to happen before they're awake. I can't do it after work. And that got into one of, Bill Hybel wrote this part called Simplify. But if you want to get anything done, you have to do it. And your day actually starts the night before. And so I tend to go to bed earlier because I'm going to wake up early. And if I'm up late or if I'm having cocktails, I'm not going to be able to get up and get this stuff done. So the physical, mental, spiritual, emotionally, if I'm working out, if I'm investing time in my faith, and if I'm getting sleep, I'm in a much better emotional spot to deal with when you step on my toes or when things are going bad. I had a cancer diagnosis earlier this year. I was in a good spot. I was rooted, and I wasn't fazed by it. And then part of the emotional is having a group of friends and making an effort to get together with friends. And so, it's not like I go sit at the bar on a Saturday, but I'll check in with guys. We'll grab dinners together. We'll go on a golf trip or a ski trip. And guys need to be connected. You need to be serving. You need to be giving in order to have that balance. And if you're out of balance, and I've seen many people get out of balance, if you spend too much time with your family, you're going to get fired. And if you spend too much time at work, you're going to get divorced. And so you have to bridge that gap and be involved in your community, be involved with your kids, be involved with your wife, be involved with your work. But it takes a lot of effort and sacrifice And that kind of gets into that Bill Hybel or this Robert Lewis, the paradox principle. You've got to give a little bit up of yourself in order to gain a lot.
Yeah.
And so if you sacrifice, like, yeah, sure, I want to go out every night. But if I do that, like the rest of my life's going to blow up. And so you've got to make sacrifices in order to get the full benefit of life.
This is so good. I want to hit you with 10 rapid fire questions. Yeah. And there's no right or wrong. So go wherever you want with these. But the first one, who is the first person you think of when I say servant leadership?
Chuck Colson, Prison Fellowship.
Oh, wow. That's good. 5 words to most describe yourself.
Hardworking, disciplined, can be emotional. I care, and fun.
Favorite author or book?
Boy, I love the Elon Musk book.
Oh, yeah.
I love the Bible. I've gotten a lot out of both of them.
Favorite movie?
It's hard to beat Gladiator, the original.
There's a second one coming out.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's got too much 3D in it.
Favorite food?
Favorite food, blackened salmon.
Favorite movie? Or no, that's what you just said. With the favorite thing to do in your free time?
Spend time with family or ski or golf.
Surprising fact about you?
I was on the Bozo Show grand prize game when I was 4 years old.
No way.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
And I speak Dutch.
Both of those are crazy. All right, where's your favorite place you've been?
Favorite place I've been? On the top of Lone Mountain with a couple feet of snow and nobody in front of me.
Yeah. All right, where's somewhere you want to go that you have not been?
Probably the Greek islands.
Okay. And finally, what's the best advice you've ever gotten?
Well, there's the one that jumps out in my mind, which was Ronnie Dangerfield in Back to School. Watch out for number 1, but don't step in number 2. It would be listen to people and be flexible minded to pivot when you need to pivot and seek wisdom.
That's awesome advice. Well, thank you for being on the podcast. I really appreciate you taking your time.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Servant Leadership Podcast. If you enjoyed what you heard, please give it a thumbs up and leave a comment below. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell to never miss an update. Be sure to check out the servantleadershippodcast.org for more updates and additional bonus content.